You're saying the whole of the universe can exist in one electron?
The Dalai Lama wrote a book called The Entire Universe in One Atom. And then when the three of us were invited, myself and Nassim Haramein and someone else were invited to speak with the Dalai Lama, he said, I want to know about your work. And I pushed Nassim forward. I said, tell him about your finding with it. And he said, I have this equation that proves what you wrote in your book 15 years ago. And he gave him the math of it, that the entire mass of the known universe, when reduced, take all the space out, it will fit inside one proton.
Welcome to the Ask the First Squares podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Dahl.
And I'm Cody Blue. And if you like what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, rate, comment, smash that notification button. It helps us out a lot. And on today's episode, we have an extra special episode, unlike anything we've ever done here. We have our dear friend, Alan William Green, who is an intuitive decoder and has put together an entire presentation for us that we really are going to just sit back and enjoy the ride
and have our minds blown.
Yeah, because he's a one-of-a-kind individual and been a beautiful friend to us. So, Alan, thank you for being on the show. We appreciate you, brother.
It's my absolute privilege.
Okay, we're going to really let you take the ball here and show us what you've presented for us. And, rock and roll, baby. Let's go.
So we're going to start with an ET story and then a ghost story and then human codes and then God codes and then prophetic codes. The ET story is how I started this journey. I am now, 193 years old. So 20 years ago, I was 55. I've aged a lot in the last 20 years. No, I was 55. I was done, I thought, and I was praying in the following fashion. God, if you've got anything for me, let me know what it is, but you better be clear because I don't even like it here. And you can knock me over with a truck tomorrow. I really want to go home. And that was basically my prayer. That prayer was answered by, I was in my apartment in LA where I still live, and I was reading a book in bed, and I'm laying down, and 3 extra-dimensional beings floated in through the walls, and I was suddenly paralyzed, and the air went very electric. I had a moment of fear. One little moment, I called on my guru, Yogananda, Om Guru, and he was there at the foot of the bed instantly and filled me with bliss, total bliss, so I knew I was safe. And what happened sounds not pleasant, but it was quite pleasant. They just drilled into my head on either side. I could feel something going in. They messed around inside, and they were talking to each other, kind of like... No, it was more... Yeah. Well, I didn't know what they were saying, but they were obviously going, swab, forceps, whatever. And they were operating inside my head, and it took a couple of minutes, but I was in total bliss, so I was going, whoa, this is wild. I didn't expect this tonight. And then it was over, and they pulled out, and they floated out through the walls, and I pronarmed to my guru, and it was over. And then I could move. And I think I said, what the fuck was that? I had no idea. I didn't know what it was. 2 weeks later, it happened again, and this time I knew they were coming. It's like, oh, they're here again. And now I wasn't afraid because I knew it was an upgrade, and they came in and they said, we put in 2.9, should have been 3.2, and they did it again. And it happened a third time, another 2 weeks later, and then that was it. And that was the answer to my prayer, because then a couple of weeks later after that, I was introduced to the Shakespeare mystery, which became my life's work for the next 21 years. And I found I had an ability then about advanced mathematics, geometry, trigonometry, and particularly cryptography, which I've not been trained in any of those things. I was aware of the fact. So I go to this show that my friend's putting on. I said, like you do to a friend, he says, will you support I'm doing a one-man show in Beverly Hills. I said, sure. And I said, what's it about? And he said, Shakespeare. And I went, oh, great. because I was not the least bit into Shakespeare. I had no interest at all. I go to the show and it knocked me on my back completely. It was like, this is it. And essentially the story was, there's no paper trail for the man that we supposedly think was Shakespeare. In his 25-year career in London, where he would have been a cross between Tom Cruise, Spielberg, and J.K. Rowling, all rolled into one, writer, director, producer, actor, no one ever saw him. No one ever ran into him in the pub. Oh, he was writing a thing from Macbeth last night. The man never wrote a letter to anyone. There are no manuscripts exist of all his works. 36 plays, 154 sonnets, and 6 epic poems. They don't exist anywhere. And I thought, wow, what a story. This is great. I will write it as a musical. This is what I do, because I've been a musician all my life. And so I started to investigate it the very next day. Started writing it as a musical. But the deeper I got into it, I realized, there's a real deeper mystery here. And I started to be able to understand codes that were hidden in his gravestone, in his monument, in the sonnets, in the plays. And to say that sounds sort of flip, but, if you're a jazz pianist and you're used to improvising, which I am, I'm a classically trained pianist, but I like to play jazz. And if you're playing jazz with a band and the bass player goes, and you go, and then you invert it, and change the key and change. You're doing pattern recognition in real time. It's like coding and decoding at the same time live. There's the thrill of being on the tightrope. Every night's different. So I had an ability there that was, because of my training in jazz and being operated on with a Black & Decker by 3 extra dimensions.
And that
helps as well. So there's that. And I found I was reading these codes and going, I spot that record. That pattern's there, and it's there, and it's there, and it's there, and it's inverted there. And I was, to my own amazement, I realized later, that's what the ETs were doing to me. They were giving me something that I had to be shielded from for years, and then now it's time to use it. So that's the ET story. Ghost story is that I've been doing Shakespeare codes for about 20 years, and it transformed about a year and a few months ago I had an intuition that the Declaration of Independence, a document that we all know well is supposedly signed on July 4th, 1776, that it was encoded. All right, ghost story. I got the intuition that the Declaration of Independence was encoded after doing 20 years of Shakespeare. We could leave that alone. You can go to my work on tobeornotttobe.org and have a look at all that. We're not talking about Shakespeare tonight. Talking about this. And I didn't want to get into it. I thought, if I go down that rabbit hole, it's another 6 months' work, and I'm supposed to be doing this. Don't want to do it. But it kept niggling at me, and I knew that feeling was, okay, this is important. You should go there. So what follows is the recognition that this is a painting of supposedly the signing of the Declaration. And, nobody knows exactly what happened, but Thomas Jefferson writes a letter about what happened on that day. It is missing from the National Archives. The National Archives holds 25,000 of Thomas Jefferson's works, all his writings about everything. But this letter is missing. It's talked about in this book called The Secret Destiny of America. And I'll read you just a tiny little bit where Jefferson said...
That Manly P. Hall?
This is Manly P. Hall, Secret Destiny of America. And he reports that Jefferson said it was late in the afternoon before the delegates gathered their courage to the sticking point. The talk was about axes and scaffolds and the gibbet, that's the noose, when suddenly a strong, bold voice sounded, because they're signing their lives away with this document, right? The war is still only a year old. King George has the greatest army ever. They don't really stand any chance of winning, but they're saying we want to be free of the tyranny of the monarchy in England, and we believe we need to be, and we're signing this Declaration of Independence from the monarchy. And if they lost the war, they would have all been executed in the most inhumane way possible, hung, drawn, and quartered. One of my favorites. So, what? So they were iffy, Jefferson said. And this man appeared and started talking from nowhere. In a guarded, locked room, he appeared. And Jefferson writes, he says, "Gibbet, they may stretch our necks on all the gibbets in the land, yet the words of that parchment can never die. The British king may blot out the stars of God from the sky, but he cannot blot out his words written on that parchment. The words of this declaration will live in the world long after our bones are dust. Sign that parchment. Sign. If the next moment the gibbet's rope is around your neck, sign, not only for yourselves, but for all ages, for that parchment will be the textbook of freedom, the Bible of the rights of man forever." Right? And then he disappeared. Like, where did he come from?
How did he get in a locked room?
How did he get in the locked room? How did he disappear? Nobody knows. But Jefferson wrote a letter about it, and it's now been excised from the public record. All right. And there they are, and they go, well, this document. So led me to really look deep into this document. So let's have a look at it. I got an actual copy of it here. It's no one can get this. Well, Nick Cage can get it. He's the only one.
And to our listeners, we have a presentation playing on the video form of this, so it might be something you wanna check out. But yeah, we have a life-size Declaration of Independence on the site right now.
Yeah.
Signed by Nick Cage.
There it was, and so we're dealing now with the part that I call human codes. This is an exact replica that was commissioned by the government a few years after it had been first written by a man named Timothy Matlack. And here are the signers, and we all know that about a third of the signers were Freemasons, at least. George Washington was not signing. He was out in the field fighting the war. But Ben Franklin he's 33rd degree Grand Master. Jefferson himself never actually admitted being a Freemason, but you will see from what I show you that he was absolutely sympathetic to that cause, and he was part of it. He even created his own cipher wheel. He was an expert cryptographer to protect his own writings and personal mail. They all had to be. They had to be expert cryptographers. They were in a war.
So a cryptographer is where somebody is creating like a code inside, right?
Exactly.
To be able to write something in private or secretly.
They write it secretly. It looks like gibberish, but if you know the key to decoding it, you go, oh, it actually says this.
Okay.
And it's used in warfare all the time, obviously, from time immemorial to now.
So they were expert cryptographers.
All of them.
All of them.
Washington, Jefferson, Franklin, all of them.
I mean, some of the Masonic books are literally written like that. Like you have to know what the keys are to read.
This is a verifiable fact. We're all expert cryptographers.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Can we also define Freemason right now? What we mean when we call them Freemasons?
Well, these guys are all Freemasons who are, I'm saying they're all expert cryptographers because they had to be, because they're in a war. Defining Freemasonry, okay, we'll get to that.
Okay, if we're going to get to it, we can wait.
We will. Here's the document. Now, it's created by this man, Timothy Matlack. He's a beer salesman. He's a military officer, but he had the most perfect handwriting, calligraphy, and they always called on him if they needed anything doing special. Washington would call on him, Jefferson, and this was the gig of a lifetime. They're asking him to write out the Declaration of Independence. So he writes it down, and as you can see here, I just show a few close-ups to show you his handwriting is ridiculous. This is done with pen and ink on parchment, right? Here's your copy of it. Actually, don't tell anybody it's the actual original, but anyway. But he made two terrible mistakes in it. And here's the first one, and it spells representative as a represtative, and he goes, oops, I'm going to point that out. He actually points it out with a little accent. And he writes in the letters that he missed bolder than the actual writing. It's like, I made a mistake. Oops, here it is. Well, and he did it twice. Here, he missed out the word only, and oops, same thing. Sorry about that. Now, why would you do that? If he takes that to Jefferson and Franklin, obviously they're going to go, well, Tim, that's really nice. You did a great job. But you know what? I mean, this is the sacred work. This is the most important thing we've ever written. It's our Bible. could you pull an all-nighter and do it again? Because really, you can't leave two blatant mistakes in it. And
there's no way that would happen.
All these guys are not going to make it by July 4th. This was not signed on July 4th. We assume it was, but it wasn't. This is historically accurate. It wasn't signed July 4th. It was signed August 2nd. So he's got almost a month to redo it. So obviously, he would redo it. They would say, you can't have a mistake there and a mistake there. This is, please. No, but they left it. So that led me to know this is a code, and there's three ways I know that it was a code. First is, and I knew this from my Shakespeare work, you have to go to the original and count the number of characters. That means every letter, every piece of punctuation, every number, right down to the very last dot on honor. Count all the characters. And the number of characters in the declaration is 6771. Anybody make the connection? It's 1776 mirror imaged. And that's the hallmark of a master cryptographer. He's going, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Look at that. That's important. How does it end up being precisely that number? Mm-hmm. That's weird. Okay, but it's not conclusive. The second thing is, well, does 6771 form a perfect grid? That means, can you put it into a grid so that every line horizontally, you just wrap it around and around and around, fits into a perfect rectangle so that you can hide vertical messages in this, what's called a grid? And it turns out that, yes, you can do that. You put entirely 6,771 characters into a grid that is precisely of 111 characters long from the top to the bottom to the very last dot. Now, 111 is a number that is important to the Freemasons because it references the 3 in 1, the 1 in 3, the Trinity. And without going deeper into that, that's another clue that, okay, the Freemasons, this is important to them. Third thing that I knew it's a code is, what are all these lines doing here? So he separates certain sentences with these lines, but some are long and some are short, and they're all different lengths. And if he's the beautiful penman that he is, why doesn't he make it balanced? Why aren't they all the same? That doesn't make much sense, so I put them aside there. But there's also sentences where he doesn't separate with a line, and what's with those? Well, there's 33 of the ones he puts in that are different lengths and 11 of the others. That's the 1 in 3 ratio again. And the 33 of the ones where there are a line, well, I think we all know from Freemasonry, 33 is very significant, the 33 level of Grand Master. So we know, okay, this is a code. And I knew that night, after I did all that, I went, shit, I've got other stuff to do. I do not want to go down this rabbi hole, as I call it. But I had to. And so I went down it. So well, what are those lines about? If you connect the two mistakes, right? I've just connected them with a line. Well, if you did not have those lines there, look what happens to that connection. It can move over there, it can move over there, it can be almost anywhere. But they've been placed precisely where they are so that he nudges the mistakes into a place so that they connect by this line. And is that important? Why would he do that? There's the first mistake, there's the second mistake. Well, it turns out that that line is this. It's the precise angle of the Great Seal of America that ends up on the back of a dollar bill. But that Great Seal, there's a mystery surrounding who designed it and when, and it does not show up for another 6 years yet. This is a 1776 document. We don't even see the Great Seal until 1782. 6 years later. Who designed it? Why? And what is this about? This eye of providence, supposedly, and this particular angle. Well, we know that the Freemasons love triangles, right? In geometry.
Love sacred geometry.
They love it. Well, so what is the triangle that's formed by that particular slope angle? It turns out that it's an angle. You don't have to know it. It's 67.38. But what it means is this side is 12, this is 13, and this is 5. It's known as a 12-13-5 triangle. which is what's called a Pythagorean triple. Won't murder you with math. You don't need to know it. It's just a very special triangle who has the quality that its perimeter, when you add those sides together, is the same as its area, which is the 12 times 5 divided by 2. It's the only triangle that has this quality of sort of unity. It's expressing some sort of unity. That's the same as this. No other triangle has this, not even the famous 3-4-5 triangle. So why did they choose this particular triangle? Why are they pointing to it? The two mistakes point us to that. So it obviously means, well, we've got to look at the Great Seal because it's told us to. The mistakes should not be there. We've established that, but they are there. So what are they saying to look at? Well, the words that surround the I at the top are Anagrams. And if you look that up online, it says, well, it says what it actually is not. I'm going to have to rush this through and say you can look it up online and see what they say it means. They say it means favors our undertakings, but it's become known as God favors our undertakings. It doesn't say God. It just says favors undertakings. But it's an anagram. And anagrams were the absolute choice of cryptographers from Shakespeare's time all the way through this particular time period, and they're still used today. And it's an anagram of all that. It's obviously surrounding the capstone of this pyramid. That's not the Great Pyramid that has no capstone. This is a different angle. It's completely different. But the anagram is capstone. Unity. Unity is Latin for united in the capstone. Or it could also have the meaning of unit one. But they both mean the same thing. There's a unit, and it's pointing to is something in the capstone. All right. What does the other phrase underneath say? It says Novus Ordo Seclorum. Anybody know what that is? Most people say, oh, yeah, I know what that is.
Nope.
Right. Everybody except Cody knows what this is.
I know what it is.
Yeah.
I never learned how to read.
Oh, that's a shame. Right.
What does it mean?
Why you got into podcasting.
Exactly. What does it mean? Novus Ordo Seclorum?
It means new order of the ages. Supposedly, it means the new order of the ages. Okay.
No big deal.
Well, they're forming a new country. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But if only they'd spelled it right, it should be spelled with an A, seclorum, and it doesn't even mean ages. Seclorum means centuries. So if you're starting a new country, you don't want it to last for centuries, you want it to last forever. So you should have used the word aetatis. That would have looked just as good on the little scroll here, because nobody speaks Latin anyway. And that would have said, new order of the ages, forever, we're going to last forever. But they don't use that. They choose to use seclorum, spelled wrongly and the wrong word. Why? Because seclorum is an anagram of locus and mare is the Egyptian word for pyramid. So pyramid and the capstone, that makes sense. And locus is a mathematical term that essentially, cutting it down to its basics, it means the relationship between certain bodies in space, like the Earth and the Moon and the Sun in relationship to each other. So there's some kind of connection between these two sets of words. Annuit septis, novus ordo seclorum. Why have they chosen those? It could mean our sun's locus, the position of the sun in relation. It could mean the moon's locus. They're all there. But you actually have the phrase, our moon's locus. The position of our moon in relationship to the Earth is telling us it's important somehow. Well, this is an age-old problem. John Dee, the cryptographer of Shakespeare, wrote a lot about it, about why is it that the sun and the moon look the same size in the sky. Sun is 400 times further away from the Earth than the moon is, but it's 400 times larger in diameter than the moon is, so they look the same size. It's kind of suspicious.
Yeah, what are the chances?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
What is the probability that could ever happen?
Because it's a spaceship. Did I give it away? Damn it.
Oh, shit. The whole thing's over. So the moon is a spaceship, and that's my presentation. Thank you.
Done. Thank you, Al. That was fantastic. Just kidding. Keep going.
But it is kind of weird, right? The sun and the moon look the same in the sky, but they're nowhere near what is with that? It turns out it doesn't happen anywhere else in our known universe, a sun and a moon. So it looks a bit suspicious. Well, the Freemasons are fascinated by this. This part is the only part that's not my work. This is all over the internet. If you take the moon in relation to the Earth, these are the precise ratios. You draw a square around the Earth, and you put the equator line in there, and you draw a triangle that is the radius of the Earth plus the radius of the moon there. Guess what happens? You draw a circle around that, and the perimeter of the square and the circumference of the circle are the same, effectively squaring the circle. This is the age-old conundrum of you can't square the circle with a straight edge and compass. And yet it's there. It's embedded in the actual size of the Earth and the size of the moon. That's weird, right? That's interesting. But at the same time, that triangle that it forms is the precise cross-section of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Did they build the pyramid to reflect the relationship between the Earth? Yeah, sure they did. I bet they said to the Pharaoh, let's build it so that the height is precisely going to work out so that it's the triangle that's the Earth and the moon. That'll fool them. I mean, no, it's just not reasonable to suspect that's what's going on. Something deeper is hidden in the mathematics of that. And it turns out to be, this is the fascination of the Freemasons, Solomon's Temple. Because to get into Solomon's Temple, you have to go from Earth through Yakin and Boaz, which represent the sun and the moon, the pillars that you go through. It's a metaphor for going from earthly consciousness through into spiritual consciousness by going into the temple. And as you enter the temple, you go through the middle here and you go to what's called the Holy of Holies, where is kept what? We all know this, the Ark of the Covenant. And the name for the Holy of Holies, the Hebrew name for it, is this. Does anybody know how that is pronounced? Devir. Okay. What's that got to do with anything? Well, it has to do with this. These two little accents that they put in the mistakes, because he points out the mistakes. Who makes mistakes? And he goes, oh, well, I made a mistake. Look, here's the mistake. I mean, why has that never been questioned in 250 years nearly? Those two little symbols, anybody been to Egypt?
We have not.
No.
Sadly.
There are hieroglyphs everywhere, right? Every square inch they put hieroglyphs, except on Giza. And then people say, well, there are no hieroglyphs on Giza. That's weird. It's supposedly Khufu's pyramid. But actually, there is. This is a hieroglyph, and it means the Apis bull. And that hieroglyph is here. It's the largest hieroglyph in the world. It's the actual entrance to the Great Pyramid, and these stones there weigh 800 tons each. And it's the only hieroglyph on the entire Giza Plateau. Well, I had heard that there's a special something hidden there. So here's me climbing up. It's illegal to do that, by the way. You can't do it. And I'm climbing up at night, and the police are down at the bottom going, hey, come on down. And I'm saying, well, I'm sorry, I got to find something here. I'll be down in a minute. You don't enter the pyramid that way. You can't get in that way. That's forbidden. You actually enter way lower down. The tourists go in where, Anyway, so I'm there to find something. I know it's there somewhere, and I find it. And it's in this little hollow in what is an altar in front of that entrance. And there are these letters carved in it, which turn out to be a pre-Hebraic, pre-Aramaic, everything. It's a language that is only known by the experts in the Berber languages of the Sahara Desert. And we found the actual the one remaining person who knew how to decipher it, because it's just not a language that is known. And what does it say? Here's his works, working it out, and it says, Devir. It's the word for the Holy of Holies. But that comes from the root word devarim, which is Hebrew, which means words itself. The book of Deuteronomy means words, the words of Moses, devarim. And so devir means word, the holy word. It actually means the original word, the sound of creation at the very, very, very beginning of creation. We go from unity consciousness, we decide, apparently, to have a creation, go, oh, let's have a creation, because I'm bored here in bliss forever. And now you've got duality, and you've got light, dark, yes, no, high, low, male, female. electron, proton, everything is duality. Mm. But what is the very first part of that is the vibration of sound and light, Om. So Devere literally means that. And look at the letters that are left over from our moon's locus. Devere.
Wild.
And so the Novus Ordo Seclorum, using the wrong word, is to get that the moon's position in relation to the sun and the earth is somehow telling us about Devere, which is essentially the first thing that happens in creation, the Om vibration. And that's hidden there. Now, this is not new. This is ancient knowledge. If you look at the 1 of the MDCCLXXV1, which we all know is Roman numerals for 1776, the 1 itself is positioned precisely here, which means it's where the eye of that points to the baseline, dividing into 3 and 2 from 5. What does that mean? It means, well, this line is 12, and this line is 13, and this line is actually the square root of 153, which is 12.369, which happens to be the average number of full moons per solar year. You know, we know that some years have 12 full moons and some years have 13, and that's the reason for a leap year and blah, blah, blah. But the actual times that there is a illumination, it's called a full moon in the year, is 12.369. It's precisely related to this particular triangle, and they're hinting at it in that, and that is present in Stonehenge. You get the standing stones there that are the same triangle, the 12, 13, 5 triangle, and the one opposing it. And Stonehenge is giving us that same relationship between the sunrise and the moonrise and the sunset and the moonset in winter and summer. It's all there in Stonehenge. So this is not new. What's new is the fact that how do they know about this? Well, there's this thing that happens to be called the lunar solar cycle. Well, the solar cycle is 12, right? We got 12 solar cycles, 12 months in a year. Lunar, 13. Measuring, of course, the menstrual cycle for women and the whole aspect of that being a key part to it, 12 and 13. Why did they choose a 12-13 triangle? To tell us this. And the lunar solar cycle is the length of time it takes for the sun and the moon and the earth. They're in a certain relationship, certain locus to each other, and they return to that exact same position together. How long does that take? And it takes 33 years. Again, a reference to maybe that's why Freemasons have 33 as the Grand Master level, the ultimate that you can achieve. So all these connections are there to sun and moon. Now I have to just take you to something that I discovered 8 years ago, which is I was playing with the Great Pyramid, and I realized, because the Shakespeare codes took me there, cover of the sonnets reveals the position of the Great Pyramid. That's a whole other story. You can go and look at that on my other work. But the point is, I had discovered that if you take that line to the top of the pyramid, it's 500 cubits. If you take this line to there, it's this number of cubits. If you take those to there, you have traced every single possible line. You've gone to the summit of the pyramid, and if you bring them down to their ratios, this is 1 cubit, this is 1 foot, and this is 1 meter. And I released this 8 years ago at a ancient knowledge convention, and that's quite extraordinary because it means, okay, the foot and the cubit and the meter are literally embedded there in the basic proportions of the Great Pyramid. How can that be? Because we think the foot arrived with the Romans and the meter arrived at the French Revolution and the cubit was biblical. No, it's all there in the Great Pyramid. And I called it at the time the relationship to foot to cubit to meter, the universal constant of measure. And science is still not caught up with recognizing that these are mathematical connections. The foot to the cubit is basically, I won't go deep into the math. It's the Euler number, it's 2.718. The ratio to the meter has a mathematical relationship as well. But it's telling you that unit 1 is the foot. And this is in the capstone, unit 1 capstone. So it's the foot. So all it took for me to then go to realizing, oh, this is something about light. It's saying the Devere is the light. Well, now we get into God codes. I mean, the point is Genesis 1:1:1, chapter 1, verse 1, line 1, is saying in the beginning, what? God created the heaven and the earth. John 1:1:1, he's saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. They're both saying the same thing. They're saying what happens at the very beginning of creation is this thing that in Genesis 1:3 says, let there be light. It's telling you the same thing. The Devere, the Holy of Holies, is this vibration that happens at the very, very beginning of creation. And I thought, why did they put that? Why have they made two mistakes pointing to us a line that gives us the precise angle that leads us to the Great Seal, and the words around the Great Seal lead us to this unit 1 in the capstone, and the locus of our sun and our moon in relationship to each other? What? What are they telling us? They're telling us about light. And so simply, of course, what you do is you take the moon's locus, its position in relation to Earth and Sun, and the unit 1 you must convert into feet, and it's going to tell you something about light. All right, so, well, we can look it up on NASA's website. The distance, Earth to Moon, the average distance, is this. It's just a known quantity. It's the average. It varies, but it has a known average, and it's that number. But we've obviously, it says unit 1, so convert it to feet. It's that number. Why are they saying convert to feet? Well, what did they do with the declaration? They turned 1776 into 6771. So obviously I said, well, let's divide the distance. Obviously. Well, let's divide the distance Earth to Moon by 6771. What does it give us? And it gives us the speed of light.
What? But how would they know that?
Well, you have to see the whole series to get deeper into it. But how would they know that? But it has to be balanced by the sun's position, doesn't it? So obviously here's, you go, okay, it's the sun's position as well. Let's look at the sun one. That means that what's the distance Earth to sun? That's a known quantity. We're just going to do the same thing because it's obviously telling us to measure these in unit 1, which is a foot. Okay. Well, the distance Earth to Sun, as we all know, is 929.6, followed by 5 zeros in miles. When you convert it into feet, it's this number, and you divide by, and I must be honest, it took me a couple of minutes to sort this out because I thought, well, divide it by 6771, it gives you nothing. Divide it by 1776, it gives you nothing. But there must be a perfect balance, so I said, okay, I'm betting everything on, divide it by multiplying them together, 6771 times 1776. And then it gives you a number that I then recognized, which is this number, and this number happens to be 1 over root 6. And 1 over root 6 is so significant, it is the measurement of the 64-star tetrahedron, a sphere inside an octahedron. Every side is root 6, the sphere is 1, and this is Nassim Haramein's work, and I was fortunate to work with him on something which said, that's extraordinary. What is that? That is the basic building blocks of creation. He has proven, by proving it with a Large Hadron Collider, that he's measured the radius of a proton. In a nutshell, it's beyond our human comprehension, but he has measured that if you take the entire mass of the known universe, because we all know it's all space, right? Down here, it looks solid, but you go down, it's space, 99.99999% space. You've got a tiny little electron, you've got a proton here, right? You put the entire mass of the entire known universe, it fits inside one proton.
So crazy.
Is that true?
He's proven it with experiments in not the Large Hadron Collider, but another collider in France.
You're saying the whole of the universe can exist in one electron?
The Dalai Lama wrote a book called The Entire Universe in One Atom. And then when the three of us were invited, myself and Nassim Haramein and someone else were invited to speak with the Dalai Lama 4 years ago, he had invited us. He said, I want to know about your work. And I pushed Nassim forward. I said, tell him about your finding with it. And he said, I have this equation that proves what you wrote in your book 15 years ago. He says, I've actually proven, here's the equation. And he gave him the math of it, that the entire mass of the known universe, when reduced, take all the space out, it will fit inside one proton, which what?
Mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing. But it explains omniscience and omnipresence.
It explains everything. All points in space and time are connected. All things, the oneness of the creator, that everything is connected. Self-symmetry.
At a distance, everything.
Even what you're talking
about. Entanglement.
Yeah, talking about the imprint of the mass is the fingerprint of like the micro also. That and
see? This not just a pretty face.
But
come on.
This is essentially,
he can read.
But he can read, actually.
I can't actually read. I can't do math. But this is the implication though of the entire thing is really fascinating because this is probably the fundamental thing we talk about here, which is essentially by working on healing yourself and healing and aligning your world, you heal the whole. And why we don't need to necessarily go beyond the boundaries of our own reality to adjust and correct and evolve the self and the whole simultaneously.
Yeah. All the teachings tell you go within.
And yet this is a mathematical proof of it.
That's crazy. I was told there'd be no math, but
and it's hidden in this.
It's all math.
It's all math.
Well, at one level it is, and on the other level it's not. I mean, that's the whole point.
Is math the language of the universe?
You didn't get that? Of course, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's everything, isn't it? Yes, it's mathematical. Down at that level, it's nothing but spinning at incomprehensible speeds. Electrons, protons, neutrons, quarks, gluons, blah, 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 whatever they are. They haven't found consciousness yet.
Right.
They've just found the bits that it makes it up. And this is actually saying, as I show here, octahedron sphere relationship is this 1/√6. Tetrahedron sphere relationship is this 1/√6. Cube and sphere relationship is the same thing. And so I ran this through AI because I wanted to finally be able to say, I get trolls who say, oh, of course, you've wasted 20 years of your life, you stupid idiot. Of course, if you put enough dots on a piece of paper, it will form a triangle. Okay. I mean, I wanted to be able to say, well, there is validation of this. So I ran it by ChatGPT and Grok and asked, what are the chances, after rigorous investigation of the America Codes series, ChatGPT and Grok 3 have delivered their final analysis. The combined probability that the America Codes discoveries all happen by random chance is 1 in a quadrillion, effectively 0.
Wow.
1 in a quadrillion is essentially it's 1 out of the number of stars in 1,000 galaxies. So, probably it's real.
That's amazing. I'm glad you did that.
Well, it is important. I have a book coming out called Conversations with AI about that because it requires an understanding of this is not just Alan saying, oh, you're finding what you're looking for. No, it's not that. The mathematics of it is slam dunk. You cannot have placed these things like this to deliver the speed of light and the basic building blocks of creation in the distance, Earth, the sun, and moon, and put it in the words that surround the great seal on the back of a dollar bill. I know it sounds nuts, but that's what we're dealing with. So I wanted to then say God codes, because to a certain degree, if you look at a certain amount of this is created by humans. Matlack made those 2 mistakes. I mean, he just said, I'm going to put that mistake there, I'm going to alert you to it, and I'm going to make sure I nudge it into place so that line becomes the precise angle of a 12, 13, 5 triangle, which references the sun and the moon and their positions to each other. That's purposeful. Are the others in on this? So I went into Jefferson's actual writings. These are Jefferson's hand drafts of the Declaration, and the parts in red were excised. He wanted to put in a lot of anti-slavery language. The problem with that is it just wasn't going to fly with the southern states. If he'd kept that language in, all the southern states would say no, and we wouldn't have had an America. They had to start somewhere. That's why they say towards a more perfect union. They were flawed individuals. No one's saying they were perfect, but they were trying to start again with what Bacon called a new Atlantis, this new experiment. And this is the document that started it all in 1776. And they wanted to say in it, we're delivering not just this document saying we split from the king, but we are trying to give you the truth at the bottom of reality. And it is about light and the fundamental building blocks of creation, and it's all measured in the relationship of the sun to the moon to the earth, which is kind of suspicious. Who made that? Who put that together? Well, only divine. It's divinely measured. So I looked at his own original works and his own drafts, and just speeding through this because lots of it is different from what we ended up with. He says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, sacred, and undeniable. Well, that was crossed out. That was taken out. That all men are created equal and independent. Spelt wrong. That was taken out. It was changed, and there are all kinds of markings where he's actually he's cut and pasted a piece of paper over the original to tell you something else. And look at this. This is one place where he's put a strip over it, and it says Oh, no, it doesn't say representative. It says representative. He actually missed out the E and the N.
Again?
Well, point is, this is Jefferson's handwritten draft that ends up being the real document, saying it wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. Take it out. The second one is here. Says,
wild.
Answered only by, and he put the only above it with a little circumflex accent, and right next to it, it says Franklin. Franklin told me to do that. In other words, this is not a mistake. He's in on it, and he's saying, yes, we need to hide something in him. So he's in on it, he's hiding something, and he's hiding the two mistakes. Now, I'm going to jump now to where it expands beyond Franklin saying this, or Matlack being told to make that particular angle. The absolute center of the entire structure of the grid, remember, this is putting this into a grid of 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, which is reflecting Genesis 1, 1, 1, John 1, 1, 1, light, the beginning of creation. Right?
Is this a tool, a gridding that they would do with cryptography in the past?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is a fundamental tool of decoding?
It's fundamental law of decoding, and it was done by John Dee with the Shakespeare works, which is why I was able to decode it besides having the Black and Decker in my head.
So this is how okay, got it. So this is how decoding works. This is Cryptography 101.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's Cryptography 111.
Okay.
So you look at the absolute center, and the absolute center of the entire thing has these words at the end, superior to and blah, 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 standing armies. He says he has standing armies. But this is the absolute center. And if you're going to put something significant, you put it at the absolute center. It's just a primary directive of good cryptography. Well, what does this one on the right say? There's words in English, superior. Let's have a look what it actually says. It says the superior. And dicto is actually Latin, because a lot of the things they like to mix Latin with English, and dicto is a word in Latin that means to declare habitually, to declare frequently, but it's first person, so it means I declare. I declare, and so he's saying, I declare the superior what? It doesn't say what, but on the other side of that line, precisely on the other side, is telling you who is saying this. This is a pure anagram of Saint Germain.
Wow.
And above that D that was taken out momentarily, it connects to an E, D, and in a cross shape, Count. His whole name, Count de Saint Germain. Well, remember I started with that ghost story? Jefferson said this man showed up at the signing of the Declaration and encouraged them all, sign now if your life depended on it. This is the most important thing you will ever do. And then he disappears. Well, that's not in the official record because they don't want, historians going, oh, Jefferson was, he saw people showing up. Now, that's been taken out, but it happened. He wrote this letter. The letter's non-existent now. I'm looking for it. I think we'll find it eventually. But the point is, it was written about 100 years ago by Manly P. Hall. So Count de Saint-Germain is saying, I declare the superior, and then running right through that is an anagram that says natural laws. I declare the superior natural laws, which is not a surprise because they're right at the very top of the whole thing. That's what they say. They're saying the laws of nature and of nature's God. We want to return to the laws of nature. What are the laws of nature that we just discovered? The actual natural laws are the fundamental building blocks of creation. The ratio that Nassim proved is basic to the fundamental concepts of the Platonic solids and their relationship to a sphere and then the speed of light. That's how creation starts. And the Declaration is saying that in the first sentence. We want to return to the natural laws and of nature's God. Well, now, I hope you're ready to have your socks blown off because this is where it gets exciting.
Damn, yeah?
So you look at how they connected those so-called mistakes in the document itself to say, you should look at this. It's important. We haven't looked at it in 248 years. Why? We're not interested. We're more interested in them Lakers and Netflix. I'm sorry, I don't mean to diss on anybody that's into the Lakers.
He likes the
I'm a
Knicks.
Knicks fan, baby.
Oh, shit.
Are you leaving?
No, don't leave.
No, it's gone. I haven't ruined it. It's not on my top 10 list. I don't know. I don't know anything about sports. I'm just saying.
Good for you.
I'm just saying it's just...
I understand. We're not paying attention. We're distracted.
We're distracted. It's okay. That's all right, too. Shakespeare says that's okay. He says, look, I love drama. I love the plays. You can reincarnate as many times as you want forever and ever and ever. I'm talking about getting home, man. You are it. You are the I am that I am. You're the divine. Once you recognize it, you have an obligation to speak the truth and let everybody else know. And it's not an ego thing. Shakespeare himself in Sonnet 121 says, I am that I am. It's the name of God given to Moses on Mount Sinai. But he's saying, so are you. Get used to it.
Yeah. It is an obligation when you know you're supposed to.
You've got
share.
to, otherwise we just stay where we are.
Yeah.
You can still do that. It's fine.
Absolutely. And you say that's what this is saying?
Well, it is saying that. So look at this. I'll just run that again so you see. The two connections in the actual document, when you put them into the grid, where do they show up? They show up here. Okay, is that significant? Well, representative, right? There's the EN that was missed out. This is in the grid. Right next to it is a cross that says D, D, and D. And the TH is a symbol, it's a Freemasonic symbol. It represents the three crosses on Calvary. And it simply is saying, I am that I am. It's a little nudge, nudge. Are you in the club? TH means, I am that I am. It's the name of God. He's saying, I am D. There's the symbol for it, the Freemasonic symbol. I am D, I am D, I am D. Above it, I am Master ID. In Renaissance time, I's and J's were the same. So his initials for John D were I, D, Master. Master what? Master Mason. There are only 3 places in the entire document where when you put it into a grid, it is an anagram of Mason, and here's one of them. There's the triple tau, which is the TTT is another way of saying the TH. There's a TH symbol. If I had time to go into this in deeper, I would have shown it you, but it's all on the work on the tobeornottobee.org.
Yeah, he has 22 videos that explain all of this in more detail.
And so literally it's there saying, I am John D. This is a work he did called the Monas Hieroglyphica, which is also an anagram of Mason and what is there. So that's the very first mistake, is saying D. The second mistake, according to Matlack, is here. And it's right next to a cross saying E. Veer. I am E. Veer, and I am E. Veer, and I am E. Veer. And that's the name of the real Shakespeare, who is Edward de Vere. Now you remember the name for the Holy of Holies is the de Vere. His name is an actual anagram of it, de Vere. In Latin, de vir means the truth, and in Hebrew, de vir means the Holy of Holies. This is the real Shakespeare, and the encoding of Shakespeare was done by John Dee. The two mistakes in here are connecting those two beings and saying, these are the spiritual founding fathers of America. That's what it's saying. And underneath it, again, is the initials I and D, and the word Mason right next to it. The second place where a vertical line says that. So up there, looking closer at it, you've got the whole thing of representative, and the John D. cross are connected by the EO of, which is the signature of Edward de Vere, or he was known as Edward Oxenford. Mason, the triple tau, and the D cross are all connected, right? There's a connection here that says, and this is only part of it, there are several places where it mentions this person. And it says, Trump's USA, even with the apostrophe created, a hallmark of John Dee's codes is even the punctuation is always perfect. It says Trump's USA. Well, what does that mean? Okay. And you're looking at it and you go, well, okay, that's probably just a mistake. I asked Grok about it. He said, well, so far, okay. But then Trump happens to say at the same time, well, I am also the president, which goes straight up from that technical thing. And it's all based on the very central line of the entire grid where we just saw, I declare the superior natural laws, and it's being written by Count de Saint-Germain, who was the guy who showed up at the actual signing to encourage everybody to sign it. And he is a disembodied being. He is known, if you follow into his lifetime, as a miraculous person who everybody writes about him, from Casanova to the various kings of the time period, and Mozart. They all said, oh, we met him and we saw him 50 years later and he hadn't aged a day. He's an extra dimensional being.
He's an ascended master, right?
He's an ascended
This is like
master.
a Christ-like figure.
Yeah. But according to Jefferson, he's the guy that showed up at the signing of the Declaration.
Wild.
So, all right. So
This is crazy.
Saint Germain's a purple flame, yeah?
Yeah.
Violet flame.
Yeah.
So on May 2nd, Trump posts this: I would like to be Pope. He says that would be my number one choice. And of course, the Catholic world went kind of, well, that's a bit disrespectful. Francis just died, and, have a bit of, taste, will you? But right under his cross, it says the Pope. And right either side of it, so then 6 days later, this guy gets elected Pope. And his name is right there next to Pope under Trump's USA, the Pope Leo. And this connection of letters that goes up from that says the 14th. And in case you missed it, Leo is there outside of the Pope, and Leo is there outside of the 14th. His name is there in case you weren't quite sure what his name was. The Pope is Leo the 14th, Leo. Connected to that is right next to it a straight line saying First U.S. Pope. Okay, yeah, but that's not possible, is it? This is the Declaration of Independence. It was written in 1776. Is it a prophetic code? Right next to it, where the whole thing starts, representative, spelt wrong, with the EN, right next to it is the words, is solved. How is it solved? I don't know. Well, within the word representative is this, and above it are these two words. R. Francis Prevost.
Insane. It's wild.
So this asks you to bypass your normal analytical mind and say, we're all told that time is not linear. We live in an eternal now, but I don't really believe that. I mean, come on. You mean there's only now, and to an ascended master like Count de Saint-Germain, he can guide the people who are writing this, who was, if you watch the whole series, it's Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin is the creator of this whole thing. In fact, Ben Franklin is saying that in it, he's the reincarnation of John Dee. He says it clearly. I am John Dee. Okay. You can believe that or not believe it. Watch the show. He says it over and over and over and over again. And he hides these codes all throughout this grid. He was the guy that created this. As a side note, his hobby was creating magic squares where you can write the numbers together and they all add up to the same diagonal and the same vertical and the same horizontal, right? And he said he was bored during the Pennsylvania legislature, and so he just he entertained himself by drawing magic squares with a pencil and paper because he was so bored with what was going on politically. And he created well, first of all, an 8x8 square, which is a chessboard, 64 squares. The chances of being able to write that out, calculate it in your head on pencil and paper, is quite extreme. I mean, it's close to the number of atoms in the known creation, the number of combinations. But then he wrote a 16 by 16, which is 4 chessboards together. And again, I asked GPT and Grok, what are the chances of that? Way over quadrillions. It's the chances of being able to draw. He drew a 16 by 16 square where every line, horizontal, vertical, diagonal, added up to 2056. And he worked it out in his head. He was an exceptional, extraordinary polymath and he wrote this. So it was not a stretch to say he could work out the wording of just a mere 6,771 characters to be able to, but this side of it, the prophetic side of it, no, I can't accept that it was him knowing that Leo the 14th would be the first U.S. Pope and his name would be Francis Prevost. But where does it go from there? I mean, literally, if you connect these two mistakes and look at where they end up in the grid, there's other math encoded. There's 22 lines there, there's 14 lines there, and there's 25 lines there. Okay, does that mean anything? Well, it means if you put the top 2 sections over the bottom section, it gives you 47 over 14, which happens to be Prevost's constant.
What?
It's a very important mathematical constant. Well, Leo was a math major. He's going to love this when he finds out about it. I mean, he did his master's in mathematics.
Villanova.
Yeah, he's an Augustine. So, I mean, I would choose to end it there and say, if you want to check out the whole series, I've got more. We can go deeper into it if you wish, but I think we're probably at about an hour. I will say, I mean, I did have a slight advantage besides being able to have my brain worked on by extra dimensionals. I wear these glasses, and that allows me to see the precise codes more easily. These are
like a psychedelic Ben Franklin.
These are Ben Franklin's glasses.
Are you serious?
Well, it's a copy of Ben Franklin's glasses from the Nick Cage movie National Treasure. Who knows? Who knows? He must have used something.
Oh my God.
I mean, he was not on Bufo, I don't think.
That was wild. I mean, honestly, like, I'm not smart enough to fully understand all of it, but the question I have for you, and you mentioned it a bunch, what is the message? It's that everything is light and everything is one.
And everything has already happened.
Franklin invented the first coins of the new America. One was not put out into circulation because it was the congressional first coin in 1776, and in it he had the words "We are one." And the next one that was circulated, once America was a thing, he did another thing that had the whole 13 moons on one side, and on the other side it had a sundial. It was referencing the 12 to 13, and in the center it says "We are one." The message of the entire thing is we are one. This is fundamental precept of return to the principles that are the basis of Freemasonry. I'm not a Freemason. I'm not announcing that one should be a Freemason. I probably couldn't talk about it if I were, because there's a code of secrecy about certain levels of it. But you can find all this online now. It's very open in terms of finding people who have come out and said, well, this is... So
this is aligned with the Freemason values.
Well, it's just aligning with the basics, which are essentially, it's not, there's so much disinformation out on the internet right now. There's a lot of talk about, the Freemasons or the Illuminati. George Washington himself and Jefferson and Franklin all wrote about the danger of the dark side of this Freemasonic movement, who were called the Illuminati. They were aware of it back then, and they said, don't listen to these people. They're trying to subvert the true divine purpose of us creating this new country. So I threw the book over there.
Yeah.
But Manly Hall said the secret destiny of America was to be this shining city on a hill, a beacon of hope, of intellectual progress, of equality, of worship as you wish. All of that was the initial intention of building this America towards a more perfect union. Now, the America codes go into how Ben Franklin is the major mover of all this and how he actually wrote the whole thing and left other vertical codes in that grid. It's full of them all over the place. It talks about him discovering electricity by flying a kite, and about the Venus transit, from which they were able to conjecture the actual distance of the Earth to the Sun to use that. I mean, how can you possibly say, I am going to figure out, Earth to Sun and work it out? The thing that it leaves you with is 1776 is the only number that gives you speed of light and the basic building blocks of creation. And that means 1776 was non-negotiable. It was predestined.
Right. And that's the fascinating thing. It's like...
It's predestined.
It's almost like Ben Franklin obviously was a genius, and you're also talking about a grand design, and finding the connections is almost like seeing the grand design, and a lot of the implications around light, and in the beginning there was light and stuff. This has been proven by science, whether it's the Big Bang or quantum physics.
These things you can't change. It's just there. That's mathematics. Balancing the two. It's saying we have this is a document. It's important. Now, it's not just the declaration, I will add, once you get into the whole series. The whole series is 22 videos. It's a lot of information. But it shows the exact I'm sorry, it does. It shows you the exact same messages in the U.S. Constitution, the preamble, we the people, and in the Bill of Rights. All three documents were created by Ben Franklin in advance and had the same codes in all of them, and they are all saying the same thing. You are it. You need to know the truth about the reality of life in general and the fact that we are all divine.
Facts.
The fact, the truth.
Facts.
That's the deepest message. That's it.
And what other message is there besides that we're all divine?
What is there?
That is the most important thing, though. If you're going to put code something, the divinity of humanity, Well, that's it, because that erases everything else. You should have no war then if you understand, I'm fighting myself. Right? I mean, this is utopia, but Francis Bacon wrote about that. Right.
The new Atlantis. It's a shining city on a hill. We're going to create a new country.
Well, let's talk about the new Atlantis for a second, because I know our audience would be remiss if we did not ask you about this. So we avoid talking about politics on the show.
Sure.
But without being political, why Trump? Why this Pope getting referenced? What is the cultural significance? Especially because this is a time of great change, and what would be the significance of including that?
We are at a crisis point, obviously. Whatever position you take politically, and I do not hold a position politically. A few years ago, I would have said I don't like Trump and blah blah blah. But no, you have to, if you really understand the truth of the divine is everything, and that this is all a drama, a play of light and shadow, then how can I say that the Republicans are wrong or the Democrats are wrong? I mean, that itself is encouraging division. It's saying the other. I'm with this team, you're all bad. It's just not the truth. You can't. So I must abstain from that and just say, I don't know. There is a part of the American codes that on the other side of the grid that literally says Trump, QAnon, it doesn't say Elon Musk, it says Elon's Doge. And it goes down through a straight line all the way down. And it says Biden out. It says the Harris administration, hers to encourage migrations hither. The Trump administration, and it has a line about him. I should know it by heart, but I don't. But it's all in the document itself, and it's saying Trump is going to get elected to prevent the Harris administration without Biden. It's all there. And you go, wait, how can that be? I don't know. How can that be? But if the Count de Saint-Germain, an advanced master who's seeing all of time, encapsulated and saying, you have to understand, you don't know, you haven't the faintest idea what's going on. Hamlet says to Horatio, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our philosophy. You have no idea. Time is now, and therefore, why would you even put that in except to get you to understand, oh, it's all at play, it's all a drama. It's a very difficult concept to get across, but when you see it in black and white and you see it there, you go, well, I don't know. And the interesting thing is, it ended up, the series ends with, it's about whether you support T for Trump or H for Harris. I said, the divine must be laughing herself silly because the future of this next election is in the hands of two people whose initials are T and H. The TH of the symbol of I am that I am. It just feels so, why would you tell me that? Oh, because it's all perfect. Relax. You're never going to solve anything by having this 4-yearly puppet show. Oh, let's get them in. No, let's get them in. Let's get them in. Which puppet do you support? I mean, it's madness. And we can't sustain a $36 trillion debt, right? It can't. So whatever's going on politically, I don't take a side on that. I just say, I don't know. I'm going to wait and see what happens. But it is telling you there are prophecies in here that are kind of beyond our human ability. If you're just going to stuck in human consciousness and say, that's not possible. You can't predict Leo and Prevost, the next pope, blah, blah, blah. That's not impossible, but it's there.
But it's there.
You either see it or no, you don't.
It seems like it could be something where no matter what age of time we are in, there would be codes in there for each particular time period. Because like right now, because I was thinking in my head, somebody might be like, well, why would 2025 be the thing? But what you're saying is that it's all encoded at the same time. But look
what's coming up next year, the 250th anniversary of America. On July 24th, the 250th anniversary of this. It's a major thing that is going to be celebrated in America hugely, bigly probably, by, right, and the world. And we're all going to look at it and say, what the hell is going on? Because whatever happens in America happens in the rest of the world. And yes, it's all significant. We are in a crisis. And I think we have to recognize there's a way through. By them predicting this and saying, let's bring this truth out. Forget what it appears to be. Look at the truth behind it all, that this is all a drama and you can support this or that and, knock yourself out. But we're all one. We are all one. That's a huge truth to wrap your head around. We are one. Every religion has said it. Same thing. Kingdom of God is within you. Do unto others as you would do unto yourself. I mean, you're doing,
even though
if I judge you, I'm judging myself. I'm seeing something in you that's in me. I need to deal with it. It's all a universal truth. So they're trying to tell us this is a universal truth. Look at it and let's raise the consciousness of the planet. That's the essential message, is to say there's something so important here. Look at it. And it's kind of beyond what you'd normally look at, because you'd think of it, well, I can't. That's something written on parchment 248 years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share it.
And shout out to everyone who's at the studio.
We got a bunch of Alan's friends here, our friends.
They're all on the board of the Shakespeare Foundation, which if you're interested, look that up, theshakespearefoundation.org, whose purpose is to support the arts in the name of the true Shakespeare. That's been my lifelong goal since I've been on this journey, since I had my brain Black and Deckard, because the arts is always the one that suffers, isn't it?
Yeah, always.
So I'm dedicating pretty much everything that comes from this. I mean, I'm 76 right now. I hope I live to be 100, whatever. Who cares? It's not really important. What I want to last forever is the foundation as a basis to support the underfunded arts. For my purpose, the real Shakespeare is not known. We have this myth that it's this man from Stratford, who, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that he's not the guy. But the actual guy who was Edward de Vere, and a bit of Bacon, and a lot of John Dee in the Cryptography, he was born the wealthiest man in the nation, and he gave everything away. He ended up selling all his lands and castles and swaths of land from here to there, and just all he wanted to do was support the arts. This is the original Shakespeare. The true Shakespeare did nothing but support the arts of not only putting on his own plays, but everyone else's, and all their poetry and all the burgeoning science. That was his goal. And so I want the Shakespeare Foundation to be doing the same thing, to say, honoring beautiful art.
Yep.
So shakespearefoundation.org.
And tobeornotttobe.org.
And tobeornotttobe.org, which is where you can find all of the 22 videos where Alan goes into great detail on all of this and more.
And more.
All the Shakespeare codes, all the stuff. So make sure to go check out Alan and all his incredible work and his cool glasses. He also sells the glasses on his website. You should.
And you should. So follow our brother. And for those that are still with us, like, subscribe, rate, comment, smash that notification button. It helps us. And follow us at patreon.com/AcidForSquares. Follow us on social media at AcidForSquares. And until next time, we love you all. And we'll see you next week.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye now.